LiberalViewer presents.
So, welcome to LiberalViewer Fox Business Network Republican Debate Clip Roundup. Thanks for joining me. This is, I think, the third of the debate clip roundups I've tried to do within 24 hours of one of the debates. There's a Democratic debate coming up on Sunday, right after my Sunday clip roundup. I may try to do another debate clip roundup next Monday for the Democrats. But for the Republican debates last night, I have a dozen of the best clips. If you look down in the video description, I've made short descriptions of those 12 clips. And if you're watching this as a recorded show, you should see time indexes down there to skip between any of the 12 clips that most interest you, depending on what candidates or topics are most interesting to you. The clips that I've picked out mostly have to do with the squabbles, the interactions, the fights, especially between the front runners, Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, and Marco Rubio. There are a couple. There's a squabble with Chris Christie and Marco Rubio thrown in there, I think, and a Jeb Bush, Donald Trump squabble. And I have at least one clip from all of the main candidates. I am going to start with just one clip from the undercard debate, and then I'm going to have all the clips. They come in chronological order, not in like best to worst or anything like that. So this is chronological order through the debate, starting with one clip from the undercard debate. I always like to start off my clip roundups with political comedy, and if there's no actual political comedy, then I try to find comedy from the politicians. And I guess this is kind of what passes for comedy in the Republican Party. It's a joke that you can see from Carly Fiorina in her opening statement. It's a Hillary Clinton joke, which of course goes over well for the Republican audience over here.
Political insider. I haven't spent my lifetime running for office. The truth is, I've had and been blessed by a lot of opportunities to do a lot of things in my life. And unlike another woman in this race, I actually love spending time with my husband. I'm standing here because...
So they love that for the Republican debate, or the Republican debate audience loved the attack on Hillary Clinton and her marriage, as if Carly Fiorina really knows what goes on inside the Clintons' marriage. As someone who's married myself, I think that that's generally something that people don't really know what's going on between the two people, other than the two people, and I don't know, maybe people who live in the house. But Carly Fiorina seems to know that she likes her husband a lot more than Hillary Clinton likes hers, and at least that's the joke she was making that I decided to start off the show with here. Now I'm going to move on to the main debate, and it was pretty much a brutal night for Ted Cruz, I'd say. He's the one who got the most incoming fire. He's in second place, but he's in first place in Iowa, so Donald Trump was going after him, and Marco Rubio, who's in third place, was going after him. I'm going to start off with one of the moderators who, even though it's a Fox Business News, this is Neil Cavuto, who's from Fox Business and Fox News. They're supposedly conservative and unbiased against the right, meaning biased for the right. But Neil Cavuto actually brings up this New York Times article about undisclosed loans from Goldman Sachs that Senator Ted Cruz used to fund his Senate campaign. And he, of course, attacks the New York Times in response in this clip.
The New York Times is reporting that you failed to properly disclose $1 million in loans from Goldman Sachs and Citibank.
Oh, sorry, that was obviously not Neil Cavuto. It's Maria Bartiromo. Here's that clip again.
The New York Times is reporting that you failed to properly disclose $1 million in loans from Goldman Sachs and Citibank during your Senate race. Your campaign says it was inadvertent. $1 million is inadvertent?
Well, Maria, thank you for passing on that hit piece on the front page of the New York Times. The nice thing about the mainstream media, they don't hide their views. The New York Times a few weeks back had a columnist who wrote a column saying anybody but Cruz. That same columnist wrote a column comparing me to an evil demonic spirit from the movie It Follows that jumps apparently from body to body possessing people. So, the New York Times and I don't exactly have the warmest of relationships. Now, in terms of their really stunning hit piece, what they mentioned is when I was running for Senate, unlike Hillary Clinton, I don't have masses of money in the bank, hundreds of millions of dollars. When I was running for Senate, just about every lobbyist, just about all of the establishment opposed me in the Senate race in Texas. And my opponent in that race was worth over $200 million. He put a $25 million check up from his own pocket to fund that campaign. And my wife Heidi and I, we ended up investing everything we own. We took a loan against our assets to invest it in that campaign to defend ourselves against those attacks. And the entire New York Times attack is that I disclosed that loan on one filing with the United States Senate that was a public filing, but it was not on a second filing with the FEC. Both of those filings were public, and yes, I made a paperwork error disclosing it on one piece of paper instead of the other, but if that's the best hit the New York Times has got, they better go back to the well.
So you can let me know what you think down in the comments section about whether you buy that explanation. I actually don't think that story from the New York Times is going to hurt Ted Cruz that much. I mean, there's nothing really illegal there. It kind of goes against his narrative, because he's taking money from the big banks and he's supposedly the anti-establishment person and against the Wall Street Republicans. And there he's taking a loan from Wall Street to fund his campaign. But like I said, I don't think that's going to be what hurts him. What really does seem to be hurting him is this charge that he's not a natural-born citizen eligible to be president, even though, as a lawyer myself, the Supreme Court's never ruled on it, but it seems pretty clear that he is a natural-born citizen, and it would be very, very surprising if the Supreme Court would go against all the other precedents, because natural-born citizen generally means someone who is a U.S. citizen at birth, and Ted Cruz, even though he was born in Canada, has been a U.S. citizen since his birth based on an act of Congress that says if your mother is a U.S. citizen and she's lived a requisite number of years in the United States, then when you're born, you're a U.S. citizen. And you'll see Ted Cruz, this is Neil Cavuto bringing this up, sorry for the mistake before the last clip, and you'll see Ted Cruz give his explanation, and then Donald Trump come in and try to muddy up the waters, and it seems to be working for him, and he admits why he's doing it. This is the longest clip I'm going to show. It's a little over 7 minutes because I wanted to show the entire interchange between Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, the two front runners. I'll give some more fair use commentary on the other side of the clip, and you can let me know what you think down in the comment section while you're watching it. I'm reading the live comments from, I think I've got about 30 people watching, which is pretty good for a show at not the regular time. So here's the fight between Ted Cruz and Donald Trump on whether he's a natural-born citizen, and I'll give you some more commentary after you watch it here.
Now, you are, of course, a strict constitutionalist. No one would doubt that. And as you know, the U.S. Constitution says only natural-born citizens are eligible for the office of President of the United States. Stop me if you've heard this before. Now, you were born in Canada to an American mother, so you were and are considered an American citizen. But that fellow next to you, Donald Trump, and others, have said that being born in Canada means you are not natural born, and that has raised questions about your eligibility. Do you want to try to close this topic once and for all tonight?
Well, Neil, I'm glad we are focusing on the important topics of the evening. You know, back in September, my friend Donald said that he had had his lawyers look at this from every which way, and there was no issue there. There was nothing to this birther issue. Now, since September, the Constitution hasn't changed. But the poll numbers have. And I recognize that Donald is dismayed that his poll numbers are falling in Iowa. But the facts and the law here are really quite clear. Under long-standing U.S. law, the child of a U.S. citizen born abroad is a natural-born citizen. If a soldier has a child abroad, that child is a natural-born citizen. That's why John McCain, even though he was born in Panama, was eligible to run for president. If an American missionary has a child abroad, that child is a natural-born citizen. That's why George Romney, Mitt's dad, was eligible to run for president even though he was born in Mexico. At the end of the day, the legal issue is quite straightforward, but I would note that the birther theories that Donald has been relying on, some of the more extreme ones insist that you must not only be born on U.S. soil, but have two parents born on U.S. soil. Under that theory, not only would I be disqualified, Marco Rubio would be disqualified, Bobby Jindal would be disqualified, and interestingly enough, Donald J. Trump would be disqualified. Because Donald's mother was born in Scotland. She was naturalized. Now, Donald,
but I was born here.
On the issue of citizenship, Donald.
Big difference.
On the issue of citizenship, Donald, I'm not going to use your mother's birth against you.
Okay, good. Because it wouldn't work.
You're an American, as is everybody else on this stage, and I would suggest we focus on who's best prepared to be commander-in-chief, because that's the most important question facing the country.
Mr. Trump, did he address that? Did you raise this because of his rising polling?
Well, let me just tell you something, and you know because you just saw the numbers yourself. NBC Wall Street Journal just came out with a poll. Headline, Trump way up, Cruz going down. I mean, so you can't, they don't like the Wall Street Journal, they don't like NBC, but I like the poll. And frankly, it just came out. And in Iowa now, as you know, Ted, in the last 3 polls, I'm beating you. So, you shouldn't misrepresent how well you're doing with the polls. You don't have to say that. In fact, I was all for you until you started doing that, because that's a misrepresentation. Number one. Number two, this isn't me saying it. I don't care. I think I'm going to win fair and square. I don't have to win this way. Thank you. Lawrence Tribe and numerous from Harvard, said that there is a serious question as to whether or not Ted can do this, okay? There are other attorneys that feel, and very, very fine constitutional attorneys, that feel that because he was not born on the land, he cannot run for office. Here's the problem. We're running. He does great. I win. I choose him as my vice presidential candidate, and the Democrats sue because we can't take him along for the ride. I don't like that, okay? The fact is, and if for some reason he beats the rest of the field, if for some, see, they don't like that. They don't like that. But, no, they don't like that he beats the rest of the field because they want me. But if for some reason, Neil, he beats the rest of the field, I already know the Democrats are going to be bringing a suit. You have a big lawsuit over your head while you're running, and if you become the nominee, who the hell knows if you can even serve in office? So you should go out, get a declaratory judgment, let the courts decide, and you shouldn't have mentioned the polls, because I would have been much different.
Why now? Why are you raising this issue now?
Because now he's doing a little bit better. No, I didn't care before. It's true. No, it's true. Hey, look, he never had a chance. Now he's doing better. He's got probably a 4 or 5% chance.
Thank you, Mr. Trump.
Well, Neil,
The fact is, there's a big overhang. There's a big question mark on your head. And you can't do that to the party. You really can't. You can't do that to the party. You have to have certainty. Even if it was a 1% chance, and it's far greater than 1%, because he wasn't born. I mean, you have great constitutional lawyers that say you can't run. If there was and you know, I'm not bringing a suit, I promise. But the Democrats are going to bring a lawsuit. And you have to have certainty. You can't have a question. I can agree with you or not, but you can't have a question over your head.
Senator, you want to respond?
Well, listen, I've spent my entire life defending the Constitution before the U.S. Supreme Court, and I'll tell you, I'm not going to be taking legal advice from Donald Trump.
You don't have to. Take it from Lawrence Trump. You don't have to.
What I'll tell you also.
Take it from your professor.
What I will
Take
tell
it from
you
your own
also
professor.
I can tell you one thing.
The chances of any litigation proceeding and succeeding on this are zero.
It's wrong.
Now, Mr. Trump
It's wrong.
is very focused on Larry Tribe. Let me tell you who Larry Tribe is. He's a left-wing judicial activist Harvard law professor who was Al Gore's lawyer in Bush versus Gore. He's a major Hillary Clinton supporter, and there's a reason why Hillary's supporters are echoing Donald's attacks on me.
He is not
Hillary
the only one.
Wants to face Donald Trump in the general election.
There are many lawyers.
And I'll tell you what, Donald, you very kindly just a moment ago offered me the VP slot. I'll tell you what. If this all works out, I'm happy to consider naming you as VP. And so if you happen to be right, you could get the top job at the end of the day.
No, I think if it doesn't... I like that. I like it. I'd consider it. But I think I'll go back to building buildings if it doesn't work out.
Actually, I'd love to get you to build a wall.
I have a feeling it's going to work out, actually.
Thank you.
Neil, I can tell you this.
So that's the longest clip I'm going to play you because I wanted to show the entire interchange. And there are a couple things I thought were remarkable about that. First, I love the way Donald Trump handled the booing there a couple minutes before the end, because it's like another sign he's playing the Colbert character, because that's what Stephen Colbert on the Colbert Report, the Colbert character he played, always used to do when he got booed by his audience for saying something anti-liberal or un-PC or whatever it was. He'd always like pretend they were booing his enemies, not booing him. And I don't remember exactly what Trump said there, but it was like, yes, they're booing because they don't like it either, or whatever it was. I can't remember, but it's like he was doing the Colbert character. And then the whole Lawrence Tribe thing. I read Lawrence Tribe's American Constitutional Law book. I think I have it right. Oh, it's over on the floor there. Never mind. I don't want to go bend over and get it. But I think that he's a great constitutional scholar. But if you read what Lawrence Tribe actually says, he doesn't say that Ted Cruz is ineligible to be president. What Lawrence Tribe has said, it's almost like he's trolling Ted Cruz, because what he's saying is, even though Lawrence Tribe himself believes that Ted Cruz is eligible to be president based on, the way Congress has passed laws that help fill in the blanks in the Constitution, et cetera, that Lawrence Tribe says that if he were an originalist like Ted Cruz is, then based on the understanding at the time of the Constitution, where it had to be your father and it had to be on the land, and there are all sorts of then it becomes a much more murky issue if you were only going by original intent. And even if you were only going by original intent, there's pretty strong arguments that Ted Cruz would still be eligible. I'm no fan of Ted Cruz, but I've looked at the cases, and I did it actually, I think like a year ago when this question first came up, and I became pretty clearly convinced that Ted Cruz is eligible to be president, but the attack seems to be working on him. I think there was recently a poll that said 1 in 4 Republicans think that Ted Cruz is not eligible to be president, and that's hurting his numbers in Iowa. So maybe Donald Trump will end up prevailing in Iowa and New Hampshire, and then there's basically no stopping him from being the nominee. It could end up being a reality. I don't know. You can let me know what you think down in the comment section. But the next clip I want to show is actually almost like a self-aware, contemplative Donald Trump accepting the label of being angry. This was kind of like a split in the Republican Party that supposedly came up when Nikki Haley gave the response to South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley gave the response to President Barack Obama's State of the Union address earlier in the week. And one of the things she mentioned was like loud, angry voices in the Republican Party or something like that. And so Donald Trump was asked about that at the debate last night, and he didn't deny it. He took on the mantle of being angry, as you can see in his response to that question over here.
Mr. Trump, South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, in her response to the State of the Union address, appeared to choose sides within the party, saying Republicans should resist, quote, the siren call of the angriest voices. She confirmed she was referring to you, among others. Was she out of line? And how would a President Trump unite the party?
Okay. First of all, Nikki this afternoon said I'm a friend of hers, actually a close friend. And wherever you're sitting, Nikki, I am a friend. We're friends. That's good. But she did say there was anger. And I could say, oh, I'm not angry. I'm very angry because our country is being run horribly. And I will gladly accept the mantle of anger. Our military is a disaster. Our health care is a horror show. Obamacare, we're going to repeal it and replace it. We have no borders. Our vets are being treated horribly. Illegal immigration is beyond belief. Our country is being run by incompetent people. And yes, I am angry. And I won't be angry when we fix it. But until we fix it, I'm very, very angry. And I say that to Nikki. So when Nikki said that, I wasn't offended. She said the truth. One of your colleagues interviewed me and said, well, she said you were angry. And I said to myself, she's right. I'm not fighting that. I didn't find it offensive at all. I'm angry because our country is a mess.
Look,
But what are you going to do about it?
I'm sorry, just with time.
So I thought that was an interesting remark by Donald Trump, sort of almost his pivot after he takes the nomination as to how his anger is legitimate and justified and isn't even, he's trying to turn his negative into a positive, which he is very good at turning other people's negatives into deal breakers, and like really harping on some negative that he thinks is going to destroy someone, like the whole weak, low energy thing he did to Jeb Bush. And you'll see a little more of that a little later in the program. But like I said, I'm going chronologically, and the next clip chronologically is actually a fight between Senator Marco Rubio and from Florida and New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who are kind of fighting for third and fourth place. Maybe it's hard to say who's in fourth place, but Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio are pretty much acknowledged to be first, second, and third. And Ted Cruz is actually ahead in Iowa. And there's kind of a fight for the establishment lane. Marco Rubio is fighting with Chris Christie and Jeb Bush and maybe John Kasich, who I'll show one clip from a little later. But this is Chris Christie and Senator Marco Rubio arguing about who's more conservative and more consistent, and there's a lot of negative squabbling going on. Let me make sure I got the right clip here. Yeah, clip number 5 over here.
With time constraints, you and Governor Christie have been exchanging some fairly nasty words of late, and I will allow the governor to respond as well. The governor went so far as to say you won't be able to slime your way to the White House. He's referring to a series of ads done by a PAC speaking on your behalf that say, quote, one high-tax, Common Core, liberal, energy-loving, Obamacare, Medicaid expanding president is enough. You think you went too far on that, and do you want to apologize to the governor?
As I said already twice in this debate, we have a very serious problem in this country. We have a president of the United States that is undermining this country's security and expanding the role of our government.
Question.
Well, I'm going to answer your question, Neil. This president is undermining the constitutional basis of this government. This president is undermining our military. He's undermining our standing in the world. I like Chris Christie, but we cannot afford to have a president of the United States that supports Common Core. We cannot afford to have a president of the United States that supports gun control. This president is more interested in less interested in funding the military than he is in funding he's more interested in funding Planned Parenthood than he is in funding the military. Chris Christie wrote a check to Planned Parenthood. All I'm saying is our next president has to be someone that undoes the damage Barack Obama has done to this country. It cannot be someone that agrees with his agenda, because the damage he has done to America is extraordinary. Let me tell you, if we don't get this election right, there may be no turning back for America. We are on the verge of being the first generation of Americans that leave our children worse off than ourselves. And so I just truly, with all my heart, believe, I, like everybody on the stage, no one is a socialist, no one here is under FBI investigation, so we are a good group of people.
Is he a liberal?
Next president,
is he a liberal?
Unfortunately, Governor Christie has endorsed many of the ideas that Barack Obama supports, whether it's Common Core or gun control or the appointment of Sonia Sotomayor or the donation he made to Planned Parenthood. Our next president and our Republican nominee cannot be someone who supports those positions.
Governor?
I stood on the stage and watched Marco and rather indignantly look at Governor Bush and say, someone told you that because we're running for the same office, that criticizing me will get you to that office. It appears that the same someone's been whispering in old Marco's ear, too. And so the indignation that you carry on some of this stuff, you have to also own then. So let's set the facts straight. First of all, I didn't support Sonia Sotomayor. Secondly, I never wrote a check to Planned Parenthood. Third, if you look at my record as governor of New Jersey, I have vetoed, a 50 caliber rifle ban. I have vetoed a reduction in clip size. I have vetoed a statewide ID system for gun owners, and I have pardoned six out-of-state folks who came through our state and were arrested for owning a gun legally in another state, so they never had to face charges. And on Common Core has been eliminated in New Jersey. So listen, this is the difference between being a governor and being a senator. See, when you're a senator, what you get to do is just talk and talk and talk, and you talk so much that nobody can ever keep up with what you're saying is accurate or not. When you're a governor, you're held accountable for everything you do. And the people of New Jersey have seen it. And the last piece is this. I like Marco too. And 2 years ago, he called me a conservative reformer that New Jersey needed. That was before he was running against me. Now that he is, he's changed his tune. I'm never going to change my tune. I like Marco Rubio. He's a good guy, a smart guy, and he would be a heck of a lot better president than Hillary Rodham Clinton would ever be.
Neil, my name was mentioned here. Neil?
I think Governor Chris Christie actually did a pretty good job at the debate. I wouldn't put him in the bottom three. The next clip I'm going to show is from one of the people I think is in the bottom three. This is Dr. Ben Carson, who I don't think was much of a factor in the debate. I'd say along with Ohio Governor John Kasich didn't do that well in the debate, and Jeb Bush didn't really do that well. I thought Donald Trump had his best debate, and Marco Rubio did pretty well. Ted Cruz did well, except that I think he lost to Donald Trump in a lot of ways in this debate, so he didn't do well enough. And but I got into a little digression there as to who I think won and lost in this debate, and here's one of the losers, Dr. Ben Carson, talking about whether Bill Clinton and his past is fair game in the political campaign. And he says, of course, any past president's record is fair game, whether they're someone's husband or not. And then he goes into this whole thing about divisive, hatred, that there's too much divisive language. And he talks about he doesn't say YouTube comments, but I'll be reading the YouTube comments while you listen. He talks about comments on online articles, but might as well be YouTube comments. And you can tell me what you think when you see I think this is the only Dr. Ben Carson clip I have tonight here.
One of the other candidates on this stage has brought up Bill Clinton's past indiscretions. Is that a legitimate topic in this election? And what do you think of the notion that Hillary Clinton is an enabler of sexual misconduct?
Well, there's no question that we should be able to look at any past president, whether they're married to somebody who's running for president or not, in terms of their past behavior and what it means. But, here's the real issue. Is this America anymore? Do we still have standards? Do we still have values and principles? You look at what's going on, you see all the divisiveness and the hatred that goes on in our society. We have a war on virtually everything: race wars, gender wars, income wars, religious wars, age wars. Every war you can imagine, we have people at each other's throats. And our strength is actually in our unity. You go to the internet, you start reading an article, and you go to the comment section. You cannot go 5 comments down before people are calling each other all manner of names. Where did that spirit come from in America? It did not come from our Judeo-Christian roots, I can tell you that. And wherever it came from, we need to start once again recognizing that there is such a thing as right and wrong. And let's not let the secular progressives drive that out of us. The majority of people in America actually have values and principles, and they believe in the very things that made America great. They've been beaten into submission. It's time for us to stand up for what we believe in.
All right, we are not done. Coming up, one of the...
So, I don't know, it was kind of a mushy answer, and at least it was on, a canned answer on a topic that he had rehearsed what he was going to say, and that pretty much describes what all of his answers sounded like. And a lot of times, especially on foreign policy questions, the answer didn't quite match up to the question. And like I said, I think that's the only Dr. Ben Carson clip I have. I'm going to move on now to one of the most talked about clips, I think, from last night's debate, and I think it's the one where Donald Trump got the best of Senator Ted Cruz. This is the question of New York values. Ted Cruz, in response to attacks on him from Donald Trump about whether he's a natural-born citizen, has started saying that Donald Trump has New York values, not Iowa values. And you'll see Ted Cruz in the middle of this clip refers to Donald Trump being on Meet the Press and saying that he represented New York values, not Iowa values. And I thought, did he just add in that Iowa thing? Because I remember him saying something like that on Meet the Press, but I don't remember him actually saying Iowa. But I was watching the MSNBC show Meet the Press Daily today, and they actually showed the 1999 clip, October 24th, 1999, I think it was, where Donald Trump said on Meet the Press, the reason he had the value, he was pro-choice and was okay with same-sex couples was because he, was raised in New York, and in New York they had different values than in Iowa. He actually said the word Iowa. So you'll see Ted Cruz refer to that, but I think actually Donald Trump gets the best of him in this back and forth, and especially going to the old Republican favorite calling on September 11th over in this clip.
You suggested Mr. Trump, quote, embodies New York values. Could you explain what you mean by that?
I think most people know exactly what New York values are.
I am from New York.
Well, you're from New York, so you might not. But I promise you in the state of South Carolina, they do. And listen, there are many, many wonderful, wonderful working men and women in the state of New York. But everyone understands that the values in New York City are socially liberal or pro-abortion or pro-gay marriage, focus around money and the media. And I would note, indeed, the reason I said that is I was asked, my friend Donald has taken to at his events playing Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA. And I was asked what I thought of that, and I said, well, if he wanted to play a song, maybe he could play New York, New York. And the concept of New York values is not that complicated to figure out. Not too many years ago, Donald did a long interview with Tim Russert. And in that interview, he explained his views on a whole host of issues that were very, very different from the views he's describing now. And his explanation, he said, look, I'm from New York. That's what we believe in New York. Those aren't Iowa values, but this is what we believe in New York. And so that was his explanation. And I guess I can frame it another way. Not a lot of conservatives come out of Manhattan. I'm just saying.
Are you sure about that?
Maria? So conservatives actually do come out of Manhattan, including William F. Buckley and others, just so you understand. And just so, if I could, because he insulted a lot of people, I've had more calls on that statement that Ted made. New York is a great place. It's got great people. It's got loving people, wonderful people. When the World Trade Center came down, I saw something that no place on earth could have handled more beautifully, more humanely than New York. You had two 110-story buildings come crashing down. I saw them come down. Thousands of people killed. And the cleanup started the next day, and it was the most horrific cleanup probably in the history of doing this and in construction. I was down there, and I've never seen anything like it. And the people in New York fought and fought and fought, and we saw more death and even the smell of death. Nobody understood it, and it was with us for months, the smell, the air. And we rebuilt downtown Manhattan, and everybody in the world watched, and everybody in the world loved New York and loved New Yorkers. And I have to tell you, that was a very insulting statement that Ted made.
Governor Bush, for the...
So while I was watching that clip and that argument about New York values that I mostly talked about before I played the clip, I did see one comment down in the comment section saying there that I have Sacramento values. I do live in Sacramento, but I should point out that I do have some expertise on this New York values debate because I actually was born in New York. I was born in Manhattan at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. I spent my first 3 years growing up in the Bronx, to the extent that you can even remember growing up for your first 3 years. Then I lived for a couple of years in Texas and then grew up the rest of the time in Southern California and just moved to Sacramento as an adult. So I do know something about New York values, and both my parents grew up in New York, and I have a bunch of New York relatives. I also went to college on the East Coast and spent some time in New York as a young adult, so I can kind of understand what Donald Trump was saying in the original 1999 Meet the Press clip about New York values, and I think I know what Ted Cruz means, and you can let me know what you think down in the comment section. I think Donald Trump kind of got the best of that, especially with his going to 9/11, which is always a winner with a Republican audience. And I want to move on to the next clip is another Donald Trump clip. This is his argument with Jeb Bush about his Muslim immigration ban. And you'll see Donald Trump is not backing off that at all. And he knows exactly how many points he has gone up in the polls amongst Republicans after making that suggestion that we ban Muslim immigration. And you'll see Jeb Bush doesn't even, he makes a suggestion that maybe he should change his mind. He understands why people support it, and he has to be directed by the moderators to say that the suggestion is unhinged, which is what he was saying weeks ago about this, as I will discuss after you watch that clip. Let me make sure I get the right clip. Yeah, over here.
Your comments about banning Muslims from entering the country created a firestorm. According to Facebook, it was the most talked about moment online of your entire campaign, with more than 10 million people talking about the issue. Is there anything you've heard that makes you want to rethink this position?
No. No. Look, we have to stop with political correctness. We have to get down to creating a country that's not going to have the kind of problems that we've had with people flying planes into the World Trade Centers, with the shootings in California, with all the problems all over the world. I just left Indonesia, bomb, 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 bomb. We have to find out what's going on. I said temporarily. I didn't say permanently. I said temporarily. And I have many great Muslim friends. And some of them, I will say not all, have called me and said, Donald, thank you very much. You're exposing an unbelievable problem, and we have to get to the bottom of it. And unlike President Obama, where he refuses even to use the term of what's going on, he can't use the term for whatever reason. And if you can't use the term, you're never going to solve the problem. My Muslim friends, some, said, thank you very much. We'll get to the bottom of it. But we have a serious problem. And we can't be the stupid country anymore. We're laughed at all over the world.
Donald, can I hope you reconsider this, because this policy is a policy that makes it impossible to build the coalition necessary to take out ISIS. The Kurds are our strongest allies. They're Muslim. You're not going to even allow them to come to our country? The other Arab countries have a role to play in this. We cannot be the world's policeman. We can't do this unilaterally. We have to do this in unison with the Arab world. And sending that signal makes it impossible for us to be serious about taking out ISIS and restoring democracy in Syria. So I hope you'll reconsider. I hope you'll reconsider. The better way of dealing with this, is recognizing that there are people in the Islamic terrorists embedded in refugee populations. What we ought to do is tighten up our efforts to deal with the entry visa program, so that a citizen from Europe, it's harder if they've been traveling to Syria or traveling these other places where there is Islamic terrorism, make it harder, make the screening take place. We don't have to have refugees come to our country, but all Muslims? Seriously? What kind of signal does that send to the rest of the world that the United States is a serious player in creating peace and security?
You said that he made those comments and they represented him being unhinged, yet after he made them...
Yeah, they are unhinged.
Well, after he made them,
they are
his
unhinged.
poll numbers went up 8 points in South Carolina. No, wait.
11 points to be exact.
Are you saying that all those people who agree with Mr. Trump are unhinged?
No, not at all. Absolutely not. I can see why people are angry and scared, because this president has created a condition where our national security has weakened dramatically. I totally get that. But then we're running for presidency of the United States here. This isn't, a different kind of job. You have to lead. You cannot make rash statements and expect the rest of the world to respond as though, well, it's just politics. Every time we send signals like this, we send a signal of weakness, not strength. And so it was an unhinged statement, which is why I'm asking him to consider changing his views.
I want security for this country, okay? I want security. I'm tired of seeing what's going on between the border where the people flow over, people come in, they live, they shoot. I want security for this country. We have a serious problem with, as you know, with radical Islam. We have a tremendous problem. It's not only a problem here, it's a problem all over the world. I want to find out why those two young people, those two horrible young people in California, when they shot the 14 people, killed them, people they knew, people that held a wedding reception for them. I want to find out, many people saw pipe bombs and all sorts of things all over their apartment. Why weren't they vigilant? Why didn't they call? Why didn't they call the police? And by the way, the police are the most mistreated people in this country. I will tell you that. The most mistreated people.
But can I say,
we need vigilance. We have to find out. Many people knew about what was going on. Why didn't they turn those two people in so that you wouldn't have had all the death? There's something going on, and it's bad. And I'm saying we have to get to the bottom of it. That's all I'm saying. We need security.
We want to hear from all of you on this.
So, as much as I disagree with what Donald Trump said there, and I, on a policy level, totally disagree with what he's advocating for there, I think that he won that exchange with Jeb Bush. Jeb was much weaker, and he was like, at this point, just asking Donald Trump, would you consider maybe backing off on that? And even when he was like trying to say how this was serious because they're running for president, he said, we're running for president of the United States. This is not some other kind of job. Or I may be paraphrasing that, but it was kind of weak and ineffectual, which is what Donald Trump has been saying about him. Maybe he analyzed that as Jeb's weakness from the beginning, and at least in terms of his affect, the way he comes across, I think he definitely has that problem. And I think that may be the only, I'm not sure, I think Jeb shows up maybe in one more clip, or maybe that may be the only Jeb clip, because like I said, I thought he was one of the three biggest losers along with Dr. Ben Carson and Governor John Kasich. I'm going to get to a John Kasich clip in the clip after next. The next clip I want to show is also on this no Muslim immigration issue. I want to show Governor Chris Christie, who is supposedly trying to be more reasonable and establishment, and it shows how far to the right the reasonable establishment part of the Republican Party has been drawn with this whole no Muslim immigration issue, because he says, well, I disagree with Donald Trump, but I still want no Syrian refugees and no radical jihadist Muslims. And, exactly how you sort that out in the immigration process is not something he explains, but I will show you that clip from Chris Christie here.
Governor Christie, your take.
Now, Maria, listen, I said right from the beginning that we should take no Syrian refugees of any kind. And the reason I said that is because the FBI director told the American people, told Congress, that he could not guarantee he could vet them and it would be safe. That's the end of the conversation. I can tell you, after spending 7 years as a former federal prosecutor, right after 9/11, dealing with this issue, here's the way you need to deal with it. You can't just ban all Muslims. You have to ban radical Islamic jihadists. You have to ban the people who are trying to hurt us. And the only way to figure that out is to go back to getting the intelligence community the funding and the tools that it needs to be able to keep America safe. And this summer, we didn't do that. We took it away from the NSA. It was a bad decision by the president, bad by those in the Senate who voted for it. And if I'm president, we'll make our intelligence community strong, and we won't have to keep everybody out. We're just going to keep the bad folks out and make sure they don't harm us.
Thank you, sir. Senator Rubio, where do you stand?
Oh, of course. Just keep out the bad people. It's so simple. I don't know why the Obama administration doesn't just keep out the bad people. Oh, it's because they don't want to support the NSA. Like, President Obama hasn't been a big supporter of NSA spying. That's a big joke. But maybe I should have used that as the political comedy clip at the beginning. But I want to move on to this next clip, which I just picked out because it's a clip of Ohio Governor John Kasich, who I don't think had a really good night. I picked this out because it's a slight blooper. He refers to the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP. I think he calls it the PPT, but, it's just a little slip. It's no big deal, but nothing he said was really that much of a big deal. And I think the real test of how little a threat he is, apparently, though I thought he was like moving up in New Hampshire, but apparently Donald Trump doesn't consider him a threat, or maybe wants to boost him so that all the establishment candidates get, they split the establishment vote. Maybe that's it. I don't know, but you'll see Donald Trump says positive things about him right after he says PPT instead of TPP over in this clip.
Let me say one thing about this. I'm a free trader. I supported NAFTA. I believe in the PTT because it's important those countries in Asia are an interface against China. And we do need China. Donald's right about North Korea. I mean, the fact is that they need to put the pressure on. And frankly, we need to intercept ships coming out of North Korea so they don't proliferate all this dangerous material. But what he's talking about, I think, has got merit. And I'm not putting that tariff or whatever he's saying here, but here's what I am saying.
I'm liking him tonight.
For too long, what happens is somebody dumps their product in our country and takes our people's jobs, and then we go to an international court. And it takes them like a year or two to figure out whether they were cheating us. And guess what? The worker's out of a job. So when they be found against that country that's selling products in here lower than the cost of what it takes to produce them, then what do we tell the worker? Oh, well, it just didn't work out for you. I think we should be for free trade, but I think fair trade. And when countries violate trade agreements or dump products in this country, we need to stand up against those countries that do that without making them into an enemy. And I want to just suggest to you, how do I know this? Because so many people in my family worked in steel mills. And they didn't work with a white collar, they worked in a blue collar. And the fact is those jobs are critical, they're hardworking members of the middle class, and they need to be paid attention to because they're Americans and they carry the load. So let's demand open trade, but fair trade in this country. That's what I think we need to do.
But on this point, if I may add something on this.
So I guess he said PTT, not PPT, but same difference. I guess I don't think that was the greatest of answers, but it wasn't that bad an answer other than that one slip. But I don't think I don't think Governor John Kasich distinguished himself in the debate, as I said. And the next clip I want to move on to actually does have a little more Jeb Bush. Like I said, I wasn't sure if there was more Jeb Bush. This is Senator Marco Rubio, Donald Trump, and Jeb Bush arguing about how to take on China. And I don't know, China seems to be having a lot of problems lately. I just looked at the stock market today after the debate, and we had a huge drop that is basically the result of problems in China's economy. So I don't know why it is that they think we need to take on this huge economic giant in China, but that is what they argued about. And I think Donald Trump, if he didn't win this interchange, I think he at least kept it to a draw with Marco Rubio, who's in third, and Jeb Bush, who wants to be in third, but I didn't think did that well compared to the two others over in this clip.
Let me add something on this point. We are all frustrated with what China's doing. I think we need to be very careful with tariffs, and here's why. China doesn't pay the tariff. The buyer pays the tariff. If you send a tie or a shirt made in China into the United States and an American goes to buy it at the store and there's a tariff on it, it gets passed on in the price to the consumer. So I think the better approach, the best thing we can do to protect ourselves against China economically is to make our economy stronger, which means reversing course from all the damage Barack Obama is doing to this economy. It begins with tax reform. Let's not have the most expensive business tax rate in the world. Let's allow companies to immediately expense. It continues with regulatory reform. Regulations in this country are out of control, especially the Employment Prevention Agency, the EPA, and all of the rules they continue to impose on our economy and hurting us. How about Obamacare, a certified job killer? It needs to be repealed and replaced. And we need to bring our debt under control, make our economy stronger. That is the way to deal with China at the end of the day.
Neil, the problem with what Marco is saying is that it takes too long. They're sucking us dry, and it takes too long. It would just, you absolutely have to get involved with China. They are taking so much of what we have in terms of jobs, in terms of money. We just can't do it any longer.
He is right. If you put a tariff on the good, it's Americans who pay it.
Absolutely.
You're looking at me?
Yeah.
Prices go higher for...
Hey, can I tell you what? It'll never happen because they'll let their currency go up. They're never going to let it happen. Japan, the same thing. They are devaluing. It's so impossible for our... You look at Caterpillar Tractor and what's happening with Caterpillar and Komatsu. Komatsu's a tractor company in Japan. Friends of mine are ordering Komatsu tractors now because they've devalued the yen to such an extent that you can't buy a Caterpillar tractor. And we're letting them get away with it, and we can't let them get away with it. And that's why we have to use Carl, and we have to use our great business people and not political hacks to negotiate with these countries.
Apart from the higher prices on consumers and people are living paycheck to paycheck, apart from that, there'll be retaliation.
Yeah.
So the soybean sales from Iowa, entire soybean production goes, the equivalent of it goes to China. Or how about Boeing right here within a mile? Do you think that the Chinese, if they had a 45% tariff imposed on all their imports, wouldn't retaliate and start buying Airbus? Of course they would. This would be devastating for our economy. We need someone with a steady hand being President of the United States.
Real quick, Senator. Yeah. Go ahead, Senator Cruz, and then we have to get to tax reform.
And we don't need a weak person being President of the United States, okay? Because that's what we'd get if it were Jeb. I'll tell you what, we don't need that. We don't need that. That's essentially what we have now, and we don't need that. And that's why we're in the trouble that we're now. And by the way, Jeb, you mentioned Boeing. Take a look. They order planes. They make Boeing build their plant in China. They don't want them made here. They want those planes made in China.
They're a mile
That's not
away
the
from
way the game is supposed to be played.
Thank you, Mr. Trump. Very briefly.
Hey, my name was mentioned. My name was mentioned here. The simple fact is the plane that's being built here is being sold to China. You can, if you flew in with your 767, didn't you, right there, right next to the plant?
No, the new planes. I'm not talking about now. I'm talking about in the future. They're building massive plants in China because China does not want Boeing building their planes here. They want them built in China because China happens to be smart the way they do it, not the way we do it.
When you head back to the airport tonight, go check and see.
Oh, yeah, I'll check for you.
Check it out.
Senator, briefly.
Thanks for coming back.
So that pretty much devolved into Donald Trump versus Jeb Bush, and I think Donald Trump just, even though the substance doesn't even really matter, the strength versus the weakness, and even calling Jeb Bush weak to his face, and Jeb Bush's reaction to it, and it, you know, it's like this whole alpha male thing that goes over really well with the Republican electorate that I think Donald Trump won there, and Marco Rubio had a little bit there at the beginning, and did okay. I mean, I don't think he did poorly, but I think he did really well really late in the debate. This is the last clip I'm going to show. It's about 6 minutes long. Ted Cruz, Senator Ted Cruz, starts off with an attack on Senator Marco Rubio on immigration, and Marco Rubio is really prepared and comes up with like, well, you'll see Ted Cruz says no fewer than 11 attacks against him, and he says at least half of them are false, which means what, like 5.5 of them aren't false? Or, well, he didn't react to it well, and I think Senator Marco Rubio definitely got the better of Senator Ted Cruz in this final clip I'm going to show for the debate clip roundup tonight over here.
The U.S. is on track to issue more new permanent immigrants on green cards over the next 5 years than the entire population of South Carolina. The CBO says your 2013 immigration bill would have increased green card holders by another 10 million over 10 years. Why are you so interested in opening up borders to foreigners when American workers have a hard enough time finding work?
Well, first of all, this is an issue that's been debated now for 30 years. And for 30 years, the issue of immigration has been about someone who's in this country. Maybe they're here illegally, but they're looking for a job. This issue is not about that anymore. First and foremost, this issue has to be now, more than anything else, about keeping America safe. And here's why. There is a radical jihadist group that is manipulating our immigration system, and not just green cards. They're recruiting people to enter this country as doctors and engineers and even fiancés. They understand the vulnerabilities we have on the southern border. They're looking to manipulate the visa waiver countries to get people into the United States. So our #1 priority must now become ensuring that ISIS cannot get killers into the United States. So whether it's green cards or any other form of entry into America, when I'm president, if we do not know who you are or why you are coming, you are not going to get into the United States of America.
So your thinking has changed?
The issue is a dramatically different issue than it was 24 months ago. 24 months ago, 36 months ago, you did not have a group of radical crazies named ISIS who were burning people in cages and recruiting people to enter our country legally. They have a sophisticated understanding of our legal immigration system, and we now have an obligation to ensure that they are not able to use that system against us. The entire system of legal immigration must now be re-examined for security first and foremost, with an eye on ISIS, because they're recruiting people to enter this country as engineers, posing as doctors, posing as refugees. We know this for a fact. They've contacted trafficking networks in the Western Hemisphere to get people in through the southern border. And they got a killer in San Bernardino in posing as a fiancé. This issue now has to be about stopping ISIS entering the United States. And when I'm president, we will.
Thank you, Senator.
But Maria, radical Islamic terrorism was not invented 24 months ago. 24 months ago, we had al-Qaeda, we had Boko Haram, we had Hamas, we had Hezbollah, we had Iran putting operatives in South America and Central America. It's the reason why I stood with Jeff Sessions and Steve King and led the fight to stop the Gang of Eight amnesty bill, because it was clear then, like it's clear now, that border security is national security.
Thank you, Senator.
But Maria, it is also the case that Rubio-Schumer amnesty bill, one of the things it did is it expanded Barack Obama's power to let in Syrian refugees. It enabled him, the president, to certify them en masse without mandating meaningful background checks. I think that's a mistake. That's why I've been leading the fight to stop it. And I would note, the Senate just a few weeks ago voted to suspend refugees from Middle Eastern countries. I voted yes to suspend that. Marco voted on the other side. So you don't get to say we need to secure the borders and at the same time try to give Barack Obama more authority to allow Middle Eastern refugees coming in when the head of the FBI tells us they cannot vet them to determine if they are ISIS terrorists.
Maria, let me clear something up here. This is an interesting point when you talk about immigration. Ted Cruz, you used to say you supported doubling the number of green cards. Now you say that you're against it. You used to support a 500% increase in the number of guest workers. Now you say that you're against it. You used to support legalizing people that were here illegally. Now you say you're against it. You used to say that you were in favor of birthright citizenship. Now you say that you are against it. And by the way, it's not just on immigration. You used to support TPA. Now you say you're against it. I saw you on the Senate floor flip your vote on crop insurance because they told you it would help you in Iowa. And last week we all saw you flip your vote on ethanol in Iowa for the same reason. That is not consistent conservatism. That is political calculation. When I'm president, I will work consistently every single day to keep this country safe, not call Edward Snowden, as you did, a great public servant. Edward Snowden is a traitor. And if I am president and we get our hands on him, he is standing trial for treason. And one more point. Every single time that there has been a defense bill in the Senate, 3 people team up to vote against it. Bernie Sanders, Rand Paul, and Ted Cruz. In fact, the only budget you have ever voted for, Ted, in your entire time in the Senate is a budget from Rand Paul that brags about how it cuts defense. Here's the bottom line, and I'll close with this. If I'm president of the United States and Congress tries to cut the military, I will veto that in a millisecond.
I'm going to get a response to that, Neil. There's no way he launches 11 attacks. He had no fewer than 11 attacks there. I appreciate your dumping your Oppo research folder on the debate
No, it's your
stage.
record.
But I will say,
Do you think they like each other?
At least half of the things Marco said are flat out false. They're absolutely false. So let's start with immigration. Let's start with immigration and have a little bit of clarity. Marco stood with Chuck Schumer and Barack Obama on amnesty. I stood with Jeff Sessions and Steve King. Marco stood today, standing on this stage. Marco supports legalization and citizenship for 12 million illegals. I opposed and oppose legalization and citizenship. And by the way, the attack he keeps throwing out on the military budget, Marco knows full well I voted for his amendment to increase military spending to $697 billion. What he said, and he said it in the last debate, it's simply not true. And as president, I will rebuild the military and keep this country.
All right, we have to stop. I know you are very passionate about that. Governor Bush.
So Marco Rubio kind of sandbagged him at the end of the debate there. And like I said, I think he won that exchange, although what I forgot to say is it's kind of interesting that he won the exchange, even though at the beginning of that clip, what Senator Marco Rubio said was totally bogus. His explanation for why he was for comprehensive immigration reform but changed his mind because of national security reasons, because now we have ISIS that has a sophisticated understanding of our legal immigration system, he says. But, I mean, talk about needing to bring up September 11th. Didn't all of those al-Qaeda operatives responsible for September 11th have a sophisticated understanding of our legal immigration system and all come in on legal visas to plan, to execute the September 11th attack? I'm pretty sure that was well before Marco Rubio was in favor of comprehensive immigration reform. So what he said at the beginning was totally bogus, and Ted Cruz called him on it, but then he started talking about the Schumer-Rubio amnesty bill, and Marco Rubio was already with like the list of the infamous going up to 11 against Ted Cruz, and Ted Cruz didn't really have a good response, I thought, but you can let me know what you think down in the comments section. I'm done with all the clips. I appreciate all of you who showed up live. I think about 100 of you. Also, if you're watching as a recorded show, if you want to support the videos I make on YouTube, I don't know if I'm going to get copyright claims from Fox Business on this or not. Hopefully I won't have to lose monetization for that reason, but if you want to become one of my patrons, I had several new patrons this last week. Maybe it's because I've promised to start sending patrons who give a lifetime donation of $30 or more these cool hashtag LiberalViewer candles that you see burning in the background. They come from Paul Robinette Candles. There's a link down in the video description to Paul Robinette Candles, as well as a link. If you look down in the video description, you can see the 12 clips. And if you're watching as a recorded show, as I said, there are time indexes to switch between the clips. I hope you enjoyed the clips I picked out. I think they are really the most important clips. I don't think I missed anything really important. I will be back on Sunday with the Sunday morning shows and some clips from the return of HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher and the return of Saturday Night Live. That should hopefully be somewhere around 4 p.m. Pacific so that I finish up in time for the Democratic debate that starts around 6 p.m. Pacific on Sunday. And then I have to try to watch that and see if I can make a clip roundup out of that for Martin Luther King Day. I don't know. We'll see. Otherwise, I'm also still working on this edited, produced video about all 4 Fox News women can't figure out male privilege question, but that's going to probably not come till next week. And other than that, I hope you enjoyed this show. And until Sunday, I guess, unless I really get productive or have extra time that I don't think I will, it'll be on Sunday when I next see you. And until then, I will be seeing all of you around the internet. Okay, Sandy, you ready? Yes, good puppy. Good puppy.